rename it. Let's just name it land use. And then it should automatically update that in your legend so it looks a little more professional rather than whatever you actually need to that file. Alright, so does everybody have a map that looks vaguely like this that has, I didn't go over the other two, I'm sorry. Getting ahead of myself. So let's add the other two elements that are a little bit important, which is a north arrow and a scale bar. You just go to the same place. There's north arrow. You have the ability, once again, to select from a wide variety of north arrows, so pick one that makes you happy. Put that guy in there. Don't worry, I realize I'm making a very ugly map right now, but in the future you'll make it prettier. Also insert a scale bar. Once again, there are a lot of different options. This happens to be my favorite, alternating scale bar 1. And this guy is so did everyone add a scale bar? Because the scale bar is pretty important. You know, you have the ability, once again, to change units and to change divisions within the unit. So if you right-click on your scale bar and hit Properties, it's going to bring up a bunch of different options specifically for that scale bar. We want to go to that first tab that says Scale and Units. And it just gives you a bunch of, you have 3 divisions instead of 4. You can have it adjust different ways. You can choose a different unit. So maybe let's choose kilometers. And then you hit OK, and you'll see that it kind of automatically updates it. Mine is a little bit small right now. There we go. Did anybody have any questions about adding all those different map elements? It's pretty straightforward. So now that we have all those map elements, we want to actually export it. And that's actually pretty simple too. So go back to your ArcMap, go to File, and go down to Export Map. This is going to open up just one of those classic windows where you can browse. Let's just save it in the same place that we have everything else, our IAHR workshop. So now you can title it. You can choose from a variety of formats, but I tend to just stick with JPEG. And then down here at the bottom, you actually have the ability to change the resolution, which is really nice because have you guys ever made a big one with blow-up scientific posters? Have you ever seen one where they didn't have a high-resolution picture on it? That drives me nuts. So if you don't want this grainy, pixelated, ugly map, you can have a huge resolution, or a really high resolution if you want, but then at the cost of how much space that takes up. So we're going to stick with 300 for now. 300 dpi. So now let's navigate to wherever you saved that, hopefully in your IAHR folder. You should now have a new file that you just made called sample map.
Good.
Or whatever you name it.
A different box.
What's that? Does everyone have that?
1 hour is my first map. I think it's right.
What do you name it? My first map. Oh.
I get this instead. Looks like the same information, but it's just...
you can go to...
Oh, those kids.
Let's see.
Oh, I think it's because EMF.
Alright, so everyone should have...
Yeah.
Aha. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know what EMF is.
But yeah, the idea being that now you have this nice portable way. This is something easy to email to someone if you just want to say, you know, hey, here's my data, here's the project I'm working on, or include this in a poster or a publication or all sorts of fun things. Now, have to pause for a second. Does everyone have any questions about that first half of my blurb? No? I'm excited to read the first map. Alright, so this is a little bit redundant, but so spatial data, like I said, is really important, and we're just really concerned with having data that has a defined location on the surface of the Earth. And typically that defined location is a pair of coordinates. Does anybody tell me what exactly a coordinate is? Nobody can? Nobody has any guess? We all work with coordinates, I imagine, but what is a coordinate? Alright, I'll tell you. So all it really is either a number or a group of number used to describe a location on a point, a line, or a plane. You guys probably remember back to elementary school, the simplest type of coordinate is actually just a number line. So let's just say that frog's coordinate is 9, but that's only with respect to one dimension. So what you're probably a little more accustomed to is a pair or a group of numbers used to indicate, once again, the positions along a point line of plane. So this is a little more complex. This actually has a vertical component and a horizontal component. And you guys probably have done lots of work on these classic Cartesian planes with XY coordinates, right? Hopefully, or else you wouldn't be in college. And so even more complicated is actually when you bring in that spatial component. Because not only do you have that XY data, but you also have the curvature of the Earth that you have to account for if you want that coordinate to actually be accurate. So this is probably hopefully a review for all of you, but coordinate systems, you have your latitudes, which are the lines of meridian, like starting at the prime meridian going through like Great Britain, and then your longitude, which are parallels of the equator. The equator kind of cuts the Earth in half. And together they form sort of this grid or graticule that is used to define any location on the surface of the Earth. This is actually, for a lot of people, really confusing. So you hear people say XY, and then you hear people say latitude and longitude, right? But it's actually kind of backwards, because if you wanted to be consistent, it would either be XY and longitude latitude, or YX latitude longitude. Does that make sense? For whatever reason, we say them backwards. So just try to be mindful of whether it's XY or whether it's latitude and longitude. So thinking about it, I find the easiest way to kind of remember that is just picture the Earth, picture looking at the prime meridian this way, and the equator this way, and then you just have, once again, that Cartesian plane, that XY coordinate system, where this is your Y-axis and this is your X-axis. So you kind of get an idea that if I'm in this quadrat, both of those numbers are going to be positive. If I'm in this quadrat, both of those numbers are going to be negative. So that's a lot of words. You guys are probably pretty familiar with most of this, but just to go over it. Now you have multiple ways you can express these coordinates. You have degrees, minutes, seconds, where that 1 degree equals 60 minutes, which equals 60 seconds. You have decimal degrees, which is what I use the most, and I find that to be sort of the most intuitive. And then there's things like UTM, which is Universal Transverse Mercator. This is used, I would say, more for navigational things. Do engineers use this a lot?
What's that, UTM?
Yeah.
Oh, I use it all the time.
Okay. What's like the advantage of that versus just lat long? Like
It's more local.
Okay.
So I think the US has.
Yeah, so you have these multiple zones, and so yeah, that's right. By using this, you get to specify I'm in 17N, which is a little more accurate on a smaller scale.
So if you're like in Orange County, you don't want to use decimal. Like degrees as a length is kind of weird. So you'd rather use like years.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yep.
That's 60 minutes equal to 3,600 seconds.
Oh, did I get that wrong?
Yeah.
All right, ignore that. Well, I would say that for each of those minutes, 1 minute equals 60 seconds, but I did it wrong. So yeah, you have to multiply that by 60. You get the idea. You guys are engineers, you know. So yeah, and then within those lat-long systems, you have these different geodesic systems. A really common one is the World Geographic System, 84, which is World Geodesic System. And then what we selected earlier, that NAD, that just stands for North American Datum, established in 1983. So how do you actually figure out what coordinate system you should use and what coordinate system you're in? So a lot of times, I mean, map obviously has more specific needs, but mine was actually pretty simple in college. I just kind of want to get a general idea of where it is. So if I already know that, okay, there's this shapefile that exists, I kind of just want to stick with that. Like, just be consistent. Whatever coordinate system that has, just consistently use that for any other shapefile. But you do have the ability to go into data frame properties and assign it manually. The data frame properties is under the View tab. And then coordinate system. And here you can just manually select, once again, from all these different ones if you wanted to alter whatever your map's being projected in. Although that might lead to some problems if there's different coordinate systems in your different shapefiles. So once again, just be mindful and try to be consistent. So let's just cancel on that so we don't mess anything up. Alright, so now we're actually going to try to make some data. So if everybody goes back to ArcMap, there's this little guy that looks like a tiny, tiny filing cabinet, and it says catalog. This is a way to bring our catalog into ArcMap, basically. And as it just pops up as this little side pane. So what you want to do is navigate once again. If you don't have this folder connected, remember how earlier we connected our folder? Hopefully it's still there. If not, just hit connect folder and navigate to this folder, but it should already be there. So within this, since we're in Arc Catalog, we have the ability to create new shapefiles. So if you right click on your folder, you go down to new, it gives you a whole variety of options. We want to click on shapefile. Did you guys get Arc Catalog pop up?
Like the toolbars.
You can turn them off. So right click on that gray space next to here, can I borrow the mouse?
Huh? You can do the one for grading.
So there.
If it's accurate.
If you're missing some, I think those are all that you're going to need right now. You're still in layout views, probably. When you get back into data.
I don't understand my grading. Once you get
There you
there.
go. So yeah, now you're actually looking at the map, and you grab like that pan tool, you're able to pan once again. So yeah, if you guys didn't do that, I guess I didn't mention that.
I have no idea. There's nothing else we can just turn on first.
Yeah.
How it sounds.
Alright, guys. I forgot to tell you, so we spent this whole time, unfortunately, in layout view. So there's a problem there, yeah. We want to go back to data view, where that's where you're actually creating and editing things, right? And then now we want to right click on this, go to new shapefile. We want to just name this point. And then the feature type in this drop down menu is obviously a point feature type. And then it has an unknown coordinate system right now, so just for consistency's sake, we're going to kind of import the coordinate system of one of the existing layers. So if you click on edit, this window ought to pop up. And you have a couple options. Once again, you can either manually kind of go through all these folders, or I find the easier way, go to this drop down menu and hit import. And what it's going to do is it's going to navigate to where all your shapefiles are, and you can just say, okay, I want the same coordinate system as colleges. And then you see it automatically populated that with the existing coordinate system of that layer. And then if you hit OK, so you should see that in your table of contents you added a new feature, which is named points. But there's no points in there because we haven't made anything. So what we want to do is actually go on over here to the editor toolbar. If that doesn't already exist, you want to right click in some of this gray space and just check off editor. Does everyone have the editor toolbar already open? So they can find it somewhere? Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Do you have the editor? I imagine if he doesn't have the editor toolbar. You managed to turn all the other ones off. No, you're still...
That one, yeah. I usually like to keep that on the bottom. Preference.
I borrow your mouse. Alright, so you're still in the process of making that new point here, right?
Yeah.
So let's...
Someone messes with my toolbar, so I'm like, who did it?
How do you make it?
You want to give me the whole stack? Oh, the point.
What do you have to do?
Gotta click everything.
So now you want to right click on here, what I have up there, find editor.
There's a world there, so
No,
it's rolling.
Oh, it's making count.
No, it's good.
Oh, is that it?
No, it's because you have nothing in here. So if you right click this, right click it.
Right.
Yeah, get it zoomed to there.
Alright, hang on there. You should be able to see.
They're like huge changes colors.
Okay. Alright, so does everyone have their new point shapefile in the editor toolbar ready to go?
Yeah.
Awesome. So in the editor toolbar, what you need to do is start an editing session. And so what it's going to do is, if your shapefiles are saved in different areas, we're just going to select the one we just made, points, and then we'll only be able to actually currently edit that one. That's okay. Ignore that. That's all I think. So what should have popped up and didn't pop up was an editing window. It's called Create Features. So if it didn't pop up, just navigate to that editor toolbar, go down to Editing Windows and Create Features. And so then you should see you have these two options. We're actually just going to focus on this guy. So So select this guy within here, and it gives you at the bottom these two options. You can only make either points or points at the end of a line. So we want to make points. And what we're going to do is actually zoom to the, oops, forgot that I added some weird stuff. Ignore mine. We're going to turn everything off except for Orange County and roads. And what I'd like you to do is mark 4 intersections of these roads.
No,
So
these you're currently editing right now. So you're already editing.
So just zoom into any part of the Orange County road shapefile with the Orange County in the background, and just mark some intersections. Just mark like 4 intersections, right? You know, it's as simple as just clicking the point where you want it to be. Has everyone got 4 points? Awesome. So now what we want to do is hit Save Edit, and then clear. We don't want to be selected, but so now we have 4 points, but the 4 points don't actually have, if you open the attribute table for your points, all it tells you is the FID and the fact that it's a point shapefile, which is not super useful. So what we want to do is actually add some fields to this. So if you go here in the attribute table, this gives you all these different options of what you can do to the data within the attribute table. We want to go to I might not actually be able to do that. Oh, okay, so first, I'm sorry, go back to editor and stop editing. And then right click and go to your attribute table of your point shapefile, and then you should see something that says add field. So the field gives you kind of similar options. You have the ability to give names. Let's name this one X. And let's, from the drop-down menu, pick double, because that gives you the ability to have integers before the decimal and integers after the decimal, essentially. And then we just have to hit OK. And now you should see that something new pops up, but still, we don't actually have the coordinates that we want, right? So we're going to have to actually manually populate that. But before we do that, you guys go ahead and add another field the same exact way, except for name it I, or not I, Y. And then you should end up with these 2 new attributes.
Double again.
Yeah, double again. Yep, the exact same as what you did with the X. Does everyone have that?
Okay.
You good? Alright, so now you have the ability to manually have, GIS knows where these are located, but you want to kind of pull that information into your attribute table. So if you click on the top, it should highlight in that kind of aqua color, that whole field, and then you right click it, you go down here to calculate geometry, ignore that. So what it should give you is, there's 2 things you could calculate since it's only a point shape, either X or Y. Make sure X is under X and Y is under Y. And then you have all these different units. We want to just, for now, go with decimal degrees. This should have been automatically populated, so you can ignore that. Once you hit OK, if everything works, you should have a bunch of -81s. But if you chose something other than double, it might not be popping up right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, well, if you want to kill it, would you mind just letting me kind of watch you? Because you already have all the data loaded up.
Sure, that works.
Alright, so did anybody, when they calculated that X coordinate, get wrong numbers?
Yeah, well,
She might have not selected double
Yeah.
as a
What
field,
did
yeah.
you do to import those?
everything else.
Where did you import from?
It's actually just auto-calculated. So if you do this, if you take your mouse,
So
you see that little down arrow?
needs to be a
It
double.
selects all of them, and then you right-click,
You get them.
or right-click on there, and go down to calculate geometry.
Oh,
So for everybody else, we're just going to go ahead and do the exact same thing for the Y, except for now we need to actually make sure that we select from that drop-down menu
Yeah.
the Y coordinate.
This should be double.
And once again, let's select decimal degrees, and you should end up with points that look roughly like this. Oh, follow it. for everybody else, there's also more than one way to do this. There actually is a tool, but it's a little more complicated, so I find this to be the easiest, most straightforward way of doing it. But with Find GIS, there's always more than one way to do it.
So it knows where it is on here.
We'll wait for
So
it.
we want to hit one of these coordinates. So now it knows where it is on here. So now let's start another intersection. Two more minutes. Yes. Integer is just integer, so we won't have decimal degrees, it'll just be the first portion. Click left one first. Then highlight the row there. Again. Now here, select decimal degrees. Is that what you do? Now Y. Select it again. Select it. And then here you want to do Y
Favorite
down.
GIS.
Yeah, what?
Okay, so now we have coordinates, but we don't actually have any information. What I'd like you to do is go back the same way at another field, but we're going to have a different type of field. So if you looked at that colleges, you'll notice that some of it was just informational. Some of it was just literally blocks of text, like the name of the university or the address. We want something kind of like that. So let's just call it intersection. Well, let's just call it info. That might be fun. And so of the different types, we actually want to make this text rather than an integer or a double. And so the only thing you actually get to specify for text is how many characters you allow yourself. The idea being that if you have a huge amount of information, you can put like 300 characters. That's not huge, but then obviously that just makes your file a little bigger. So we're just going to stick with 50 because that's all we need for our purposes. So then you're going to have this pop up. But the funny thing is, now that you're outside of an edit session, you can't actually do anything. So now we need to actually start editing again, just like we did before. Select your points. And once you're within the edit session, then you have the capacity to go back to the attribute table and actually start typing things in. What I want you to do is, that's not right for mine, but I want you to identify which road is which in your intersection, whatever ones you happen to pick. So this is Orange Blossom Trail. So that's one of my roads. And this is Western Expressway. And then go back here. Oh no.
It's always the last one.
What'd you say?
It's always the last one.
Always the last one you choose here. I forgot what they were. What was it? Orange Blossom Trail
Western something.
and Western Expressway. So I want you to just go through, update those with the proper, so you guys probably did different intersections, so your answers will be different. But just use that identity tool to kind of go, okay, this is this road. Once again, Orange Blossom Trail. And Cimarron. And then update, within that editing session, update the right point. And so you'll notice that an easy way to identify which point is which is this select where you can select just the one point, and it's going to highlight in that aqua color which point you're actually looking at. So just go through and update your info accordingly.
Uh-oh. Of course. That's weird.
had to go pick it up, cause the special's only good at
What time? 'Cause I'm just nearing the end, so I don't know if you wanna.
She left to go walk over there and pick it up, so.
Oh, that's a while ago, right? So, do you have any idea when she might be getting back?
10 more minutes.
Okay. That works. Is anybody having any issues with identifying their roads or updating that info field? What's going on? You can actually, so one of the nice things is everything here is sort of adjustable. Okay, so let's say your point 0. Where is it? Oh, it's not on a road. Well, just make, just get some roads in Orlando. But you kind of get the concept, right? So you can create your index that this more than likely you could already get this from some other source. But yeah, and then I have them exported back out as an Excel table so that you can say you pulled it out of there. So we did try to go over some other stuff we had time.
Can you flip the colleges to Orange County?
Yeah.
Or is that just colleges in Orange County?
Yeah, so I already clipped. So if I have to clip by something, I can just draw a box and clip like a small area.
Yeah. I use flip it.
I'll wait till
Or introduce that to toolbox.
So one of the things once you guys have some of this populated, it's important to realize that your edits need to be manually saved, just like something inside of a document. So if you were to close out right now and stop your editing session without saving, you would have lost what you did. So you really want to make sure that when you're in the editing session, that you kind of, I don't know about y'all, but I periodically just save documents that I'm working on sort of paranoidally, honestly. So same trick applies here. Just every once in a while, make sure you hit save edit so that you're not running the risk of losing whatever you did. So is everyone pretty close to done? I think so. Awesome. So yeah, once again, save edit, stop editing. And now if you open up your attribute table, it should be permanently updated with the new information that you gave it. I only did one, but that's okay. So now what we want to do is, we pulled data in, and now we created new data, and we want to pull it out maybe for some kind of analysis. So put it in an Excel table rather than keeping it in an attribute table. So what you want to do is right-click, get out of here, right-click on your layer, and go to Export Data. Actually, no.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
I do that all the time.
I want to be in the attribute table, not the property, or not the, so open up your attribute table for the point shape file, and go to that one thing that we, remember where we went to add a file, or add a field. Instead of that, we want to go down here to export. And that's going to give you kind of a similar dialog box, but instead of saying all data, it's just going to say all records, the records being the attribute table. So what you want to do is, once again, kind of navigate to this common folder, give it a name that maybe makes some kind of sense, like intersection. You want to save it